It's time now for the Todd Leonard Show. Leave those negative stories behind as we focus on the positive and hear from those who give back and help others. Let's start your day with some inspirational stories. Now, here's your host, Todd Leonard.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today. You know, each week we do our very best to bring on folks that truly give back to the community and really help others in need. I think that's really what it's all about. And, last week was so emotional for me bringing the D'Amicos on, and it really touched my heart, and I hope it touched yours as well. The Kindness for Christopher movement really, I think, is critically important. I go into the community. I try to see, folks, people giving back, and I learned a little bit about Captain Gary Lynch of the Mendham Boro Fire Department, and I just feel so honored today to have him also here. He's been doing great things, helping various communities, now locally here in Mendham, giving back, and we're going to talk with him today about kind of the evolution of his world and how he got involved in it, and also, most importantly, fire prevention and safety, especially around the holiday season. Gary, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Todd. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you again for waking up. I know the holidays are upon us, and it means a lot that you're kind enough to join us today. Gary, for the folks that don't know too much about you, just tell us a little bit about, where you are, where you live, and what you do.
Well, I live in Mendham, and I have 4 children. I run a company called The Risk Project, so I'm a proprietor now, or an entrepreneur. I used to work for some big companies like Booz Allen and Marsh McLennan. I'm in the world of risk for my day job, basically helping underwriters, life science companies, startups, really kind of assess risk and deal with risk in their supply chains and their technology centers, things like that. But I'm always on call for the fire service. I've been doing the fire service now for over 4 decades. I've been in Mendham Boro now for the last 5 years. Prior to that, I was in Mendham Township. And prior to that, I spent quite a bit of time in New York as a volunteer firefighter.
Yeah, so Gary, in preparation, I try to learn a little bit about the guests. I think that's certainly helpful for all the listeners. And I realize you started this company called The Risk Project. And in terms of your expertise, and I also read you authored some books. What type of books have you authored in your field of expertise?
Well, as you might expect, they're all on risk. I've authored some books that really talk to the practical experience and the learnings over the years in both the fire service as well as my day job. In my business, I deal with disasters. I deal with helping companies plan for disasters and mitigate disasters or respond. Spent some time in foreign locations after the disasters, rebuilding, preparing for the next event. So with the emergency management, crisis management, that's all contained in the book, but it's really helping organizations manage risk in their businesses and helping people manage risk in their personal lives as well.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I know even before we started, we were just kind of talking briefly about how your expertise in risk, planning and how to obviously minimize and reduce it, hopefully no risk at all, but we know there is obviously some. And then obviously your career in firefighting. I found that to be a very interesting combination. Was that something that kind of worked out over time?
Well, I'll be honest. My whole family, my dad, my uncles, my brothers, my cousins, everybody's been involved with the fire service since I basically have been born. So where I grew up on New York and Long Island, this was kind of a way of life. It was part of the family. It was an extension of the family. And when you turned 18, you joined the fire department. It gave us a sense of purpose. It was kind of out of respect for each other and respect for the community. And it also, as a family, taught you to work as a team and to give back and to help out when there was problems. So I didn't think much about it other than I had to do it. My brother had to do it. He went on as well. And as I said, all our families and extended families. And, of course, we were on the fire side, not the police side. So it was a great rivalry between the families, our next-door neighbors who were on the police side and the firemen. So
Yeah, it's very interesting. You bring up that tradition, and that's something I try to touch upon, too, with a lot of the guests, where I could see, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, and just how it really changes and shapes, people's lives by having that role model. You know, in that regard, and I know a lot of firefighters and law enforcement, it does seem like there's a family tradition of it. If the father's involved or an uncle or a brother, it just seems like a natural. Why do you think that is in, like, let's say, for example, firefighting? There's such a tradition of just family members just doing it one generation after another.
Yeah, you know, that's a good question. I don't know. It's in your blood. It's a really hard thing to describe. And when we bring new men and women on, young people on, we always tell them, you're either going to love or you're going to hate it. And it's something that you just have a passion for. I think, you know, giving back is one thing, but let's be honest, we're in a society today where everybody's first question is, you know, what's in it for me? And subconsciously, I think that whole sense of purpose, a lot of people, especially young people, struggle to fit in. You know, fit into a particular clique in school, the pressures of social media, and they're looking for a home, and they're looking for something where they can find kind of a tangible return. And there's no more of, you know, there's no better a return than a tangible return from helping someone in an emergency situation, whether it's a car accident, a fire, carbon monoxide leak, or whatever it might be. And all of a sudden, then they start to feel purpose. They're around a team that feels purpose, and it just builds strength as a unit. And it's just a beautiful thing to watch, and you get caught up in it. And the real challenge is how to throttle it back as a volunteer.
Right, and that's something I noticed with the folks that I know that are in the first responder community, that great sense of a teamwork and purpose and how much satisfaction they truly get out of it. But that was something, hopefully, for the listeners might also motivate them if they were interested to understand, hearing from Captain Lynch of the Mendham Boro Fire Department in terms of how it's really enriched his life and taught him so many valuable life lessons. In terms of some of the things that, you know, you talked about, you've been involved in fire, you know, in fire service for how long has it been, Gary?
Well, now it's 42 years.
Well, you look good. I tell my guests it's hard for the listeners, but you look good for that many years of service. And obviously there's an evolution, right, in fire, you know, safety and how firefighters respond. What have you noticed over the last, let's say, 4 decades from when you first started to now, how fires are actually, you know, monitored and how assets are deployed?
Well, that's a really good question. There's a lot that's changed. Let's start first on the fire side of it as well. So from a fire standpoint, construction, let's say, the use of materials has created greater risk. There's greater safety, but there's also a greater risk because lightweight building materials are used, so there tends to be a collapse earlier. They burn hotter. There's a lot more plastics in the home, resins in the home. Of course, that's fuel. They're petrochemical based. So you've got that aspect of it. It burns faster, burns quicker, burns hotter, which means then from a fire safety standpoint, families have less of a time getting out and you know, dealing with the situation. Where you used to have, you know, 10 to 15 minutes, you're now down to under 3 minutes in a fire that's kind of evolved. The other thing, though, is now we have smoke alarms. We have carbon monoxide alarms. We have gas detectors. So what's really good about that is they have definitely saved lives. And I think you mentioned you're going to talk about that a little later on. We'll get into that. But it's really, really important that you have these things, especially CO meters. And I would even say if you have natural gas in the house, natural gas detectors as well. There has been a lot of leaks inside and outside homes as well, and so that's dangerous. So from a family standpoint and a protection standpoint, we have those kinds of early warning systems or sensors. And then I think there's a greater awareness today, certainly from a practice standpoint, working with the families, teaching them how to get out in a fire, how to stay low. I think we have a lot more exposures through social media, through radio, TV, et cetera. People are more aware of what can happen. So to be more prepared for it, I think we see more preparation, especially people that travel a lot too and dealing with hotel fires and things like that.
Well, yeah, we're going to touch on a lot more detail a little bit later in the show, but it's good you touched on a little bit now for the listeners. I want to go back a little bit, Gary, in terms of obviously, you know, you're now in the Mendhams. I know you mentioned the township and now the borough, but you actually were out Long Island for a number of years as well, and I guess right out in New York as well.
Yeah, so Floral Park, Long Island, which is right on the border of Queens, which is a pretty busy area. The area around there is busy from a firefighting perspective. It's very densely populated. That's where I spent most of my time. And what was great, too, is we had a good influence of city firefighters that were also volunteers, which sometimes you scratch your head and you say, well, if you do this for a living, why are you doing it as volunteer? But it's the same thing. It's in their blood. They helped as well. We go through extensive training. So that was good. So I spent the early part of my life from 18 on really cutting my teeth in the fire service there with my friends and family.
Right. In terms of your service, has it always been through a volunteer department, or are these paid firefighters in conjunction with the volunteers?
Yeah, so it's always been through a volunteer service. The paid firemen, or the career firemen as we like to call them, the career firemen actually participated in the volunteer service as a volunteer. So they had to abide by our rules when they were on that side of the fence. But they were very instrumental in setting up the right rules, setting up riding positions, response positions, training, and that was a big plus, and they're still very much involved. The other side of it is a lot of them would come on to the volunteers when they're young, men and women, 18, and then they would go to they take the fire tests. Or the EMS test or the police test, and they were already prepared for emergency response, so it was a huge plus. And they wound up in cities like Charlotte and Charleston and other places. So the family continues to grow. There's over 1 million volunteer firefighters here in the U.S., and most people don't know that Ben Franklin was the one that actually started the whole volunteer service.
Yeah, it's pretty staggering, just as you just highlighted for all of us, in terms of just how many volunteers there truly are in the fire service. And a lot of people don't realize these are folks just have their regular lives. They're working their families off and still find time to really give back and help out and do something that's critically important. In terms of your service, let's say in Long Island, Nassau County, in my research, I read you obtained or were awarded the Silver Medal of Valor. What was that about?
Yeah, so we had the Silver Medal of Valor is for a life-saving rescue. Unfortunately, we had a terrible situation, and it was a hot summer morning in August, and it was a relatively small house. Air conditioning was on. The mother mother was laying down on the couch downstairs. The children were upstairs. Long story short, there was a fire in the house. The fire was a very advanced fire when we responded. I went upstairs on the second floor. My team split off, and I found a little girl under some covers and hidden behind a door. That was in the fire, and then the other team found the brother. So we rescued 3 people from the building, and as part of the service, as part of their give back as well, they try to acknowledge when put in harm's way you respond, and that's what it's about. We got a unit citation as well because, of course, while I was going up the stairs, my partner, who always seemed to be with me on bad fires, was able to hold the fire back in the kitchen while we made the stairs upstairs to try to make the rescue. So, yeah.
Yeah, incredible, and God bless you and all the folks. I mean, that type of response, I mean, the members of the public owe everyone involved in this fire service a huge debt of gratitude. I got involved with the 200 Club of Morris County because I want to say thank you to, and God bless all the first responders. People take it for granted any moment, day or night. Good weather, bad weather, hurricanes, whatever disasters, first responders are our front line. And I was blown away when we were going through some of the awards and what really first responders do. Police, firefighters, the EMTs. I mean, it means the world. I'm raising my family. I live in Morris County, and it's like the least we could do is say God bless and thank you. Just to even talk about this time of year around the holidays. I mean, people don't realize, law enforcement is out there. I mean, it could be Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's, Thanksgiving. It never stops. But, God bless you.
And the dispatchers, too. The ones that, there's a lot of people behind the scenes that often get overlooked. And you say, well, the dispatchers, what are they doing? But these are the people that are on the front lines taking all the pressure. These are the people that are getting the call. They're getting someone who is terribly excited. They're in a critical situation. Of course, they're dispatching. The police have to go there, first response, etc. And they're often overlooked, too. So I just wanted to do a shout-out to the dispatchers and everyone else that's behind the scenes that really make it happen so that we can, know where to go, know what to do, and be prepared.
No question about it.
Yeah.
Captain Lynch, once again, I agree. I think it's a team. Everyone is involved. It's teamwork from anyone, everybody that gets the call and dispatches, and obviously everybody that's at the scene, and also the loved ones, the families that are waiting at home for their loved ones to get back from their tour, their detail. I was doing a little more background, just research about, the toll it takes on you. I mean, in terms of you go on these calls, and sadly not everyone does get out. And sometimes, you do your best, but unfortunately there's a loss of life. And I'm sure that takes a toll in a lot of different ways. And that's part of the job as well, right, Captain?
It is part of the job, whether you're a career or volunteer. And it has happened many times here in Morris County. I'm with a woman now, and I've been with her for a long time, and two girls, and the two girls who are 11 years old have been trained, and they've been trained both physically, on how to get out in a fire and training drills like that, but also mentally, because, like you say, you come back, and you're mentally you've got to deal with these things, and seeing somebody in a car wreck and extricating them in a car wreck, or watching somebody's home burn down, and all their property and everything they love, and but you got to be numb to it while you're doing it, otherwise you can't do your job properly, and that's an adjustment as well. So
no, I understand. I mean, obviously you're in there, you're doing your very best, but you're also there, to do what you can. I mean, unfortunately, not every call is going to turn out well, and that's part of the job as well. And I think people should also be understanding on basically the toll that it takes on first responders as well. That's kind of not really touched upon, and I think people have to realize just how critical it is for firefighters, police, EMTs, everyone that's involved, the dispatchers as well, because they're hearing these calls, and they're human beings, and they have to go back to their family, and they got to put that somewhere in the back of their head, because, it takes a toll, right?
It does. But here's one funny story, and I love to share this one story. 2 years ago, we had a fire call on Thanksgiving. Came over as an oven fire. Obviously, the person hadn't cleaned their oven. There was a lot of grease in it, and it was a good fire going inside while they were making their Thanksgiving turkey. Long story short, we went in. We had to unfortunately extinguish the turkey and ventilate the house. It took us a few minutes. I came outside, and the 19 and 20-year-old son and daughter came up to me, and they threw their arms around me. The one son threw his arms around me, and he says, I just want to thank you for all that you guys do, but I want to thank you especially for today. And I said to him, okay, but, really, this wasn't a big deal. This was a small stove. Oh, no, you don't understand. My mom is a terrible, terrible cook, and now we have to go out for our meal for Thanksgiving.
Oh, my.
So there is some good news as well as the bad news on there.
Just in case my wife is listening, I hope that doesn't happen. You make a delicious turkey, whatever chicken you're preparing for Christmas and Hanukkah. But obviously it's important also to talk about the levity as well. I mean, you meet some great people, and what does it mean, to you, Captain, when you have folks, you save their lives, or, on a very, very serious note, what type of response do you get from those individuals?
People are very gracious. They're very gracious, and it feels very warming. It kind of sets us off. We're not really sure how to deal with that. But the one thing is that we got to make sure we share that as a unit, because it isn't, again, one person. You can get caught up in the moment thinking, I just, did this. But then you forget about the guys that hooked up to the hydrant, the guys that brought the lines to the door, that laddered the building, and it ventilated, and everything else that went on there, including, the original dispatch. So this is a team event. And one thing that I love about the fire service, which is kind of different to what I find is our culture today, is that as a team event, You win together, you lose together. But if you step out of line and you start to isolate yourself as somebody that's special or above it all, you get quickly grounded. And the mix of a volunteer fire service can be construction workers. They can be office executives. You know, they come from all walks of life. Everybody's welcome. So we all kind of ground one another. And when we walk into that firehouse, we're all equals. So we don't have any of this... Besides the hierarchy of chiefs and captains and stuff like that, we don't have any of that nonsense going on.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about some folks that are in this area. I mean, if they want to get involved, Captain, obviously, hopefully we're inspiring folks. That's the whole genesis of the show, is to get people more involved, to give back and help each other out. I mean, I don't know what else is more important in life. You can't just be worried about yourself. How would they contact, let's say, the Mendham Boro Fire Department if they were interested in volunteering?
Well, here's the easiest way, and this is true of most of the fire departments. Every Sunday morning, we have training. And so we're at the firehouse from 9:30 to at least 12 o'clock every Sunday morning. Doesn't mean that everybody has to make it every morning, but you'll find a group there every morning. Stop up, meet some of the people, see if you like some of the people. You'll see the equipment. You'll see some of the things we do. This gives you the opportunity to look and feel and touch and see if it's for you. There's also the rescue squads, the ambulance squads, and they're extremely busy. They run over 1,000 calls a year. Again, they're looking for different shifts, different teams. You come up on a Sunday morning, usually you'll find somebody at the firehouse. Most of the towns in the area here in Morris County, you'll find the same thing. Just from the standpoint of contacts, we train, we drill and train on Sunday mornings for our department. We also have special drills during the month, and then once a month we have the major drill. So there is a fair amount of training. I think you'll touch on that in a little while, but there is a fair amount of training that's required. But you really have to understand and feel it and see if it's for you. So please stop by any Sunday morning.
Right. And Captain, obviously not just for Mendham Borough, but through all the great towns in Morris County and the surrounding areas, just contact the local fire department or EMT service and go down and see what it's all about. In terms of the camaraderie that you built up over the years, I got to imagine your comrade in arms, brothers in arms, women in arms. I'm guessing you must become incredibly tight with your colleagues that are volunteering their time.
Yeah, you find out your families grow up together. You become very close to them, especially in different situations, life-saving situations. In some ways, you become like a fisherman. You got the great fishing stories that, were this big, and then they wound up being that big. But they're great stories to tell as you get older. There's a mix of young and old. What I find is what's really interesting is you can have a 15 or 16-year-old there with a 65-year-old having basically the same conversation. And we have a very strong junior program from 15 to 18. So they get fully trained. They go to the academy, and then when they turn 18, they become firefighters. They respond out of high school if it's a working fire. But these people are now connecting and relating to the people in their 40s, the people in the 50s, even some of the older fellows who are 80. And it kind of helps everyone. But we all have the same common bond. And that's honor, and that's respect, and respect is important, and that's the thing that we try to emphasize. That's my job now, is to work with them to make sure they understand what respect of the fire service is, respect of each other. I think that's the good thing. And no matter where you go, it's kind of the same common denominator. I've been in New York, I've been in Connecticut as a firefighter, I've been in New Jersey in 2 different departments here. If I travel abroad, I usually try to stop at a firehouse. It's a common bond. It starts with respect, and then it's how can I help you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a gentleman I'm representing right now. Unfortunately, he was involved in a bad accident. He was a chief of a fire department, and because of his injuries, he can't go back right now, but I can see how much he misses it. He still goes down to the firehouse just to kick around, but he's like, I can't even go on a call. And he feels like he's letting the guys down because of his devotion to it. And I can see in his eyes how sad he is because he can't really be involved with the brotherhood of being with the team and being out in the field. But I know he still goes down and still remains involved. In terms of some of the other interesting things and some of the additional background, so I learned as much as I can about the folks I'm bringing on. I realize you're a bit of a celebrity there, Mr. Young. I saw that these Verizon commercials. I'm like, wait a minute now. We've got someone who's a little bit of a celebrity. So how did that all start, this Verizon relationship?
Yeah, so Verizon was interested in doing some marketing and some public service work that gave back to the first responders. They contacted a few of the departments, Chester out here in Morris County, Mendham, some other departments. They interviewed a bunch of people based on their backgrounds, and then they asked if we'd be willing to kind of step up if we had any conflicts with really just talking about the fire service, not necessarily Verizon. And it was a lot of fun. So here again, the team got together, our comrades from Chester, ourselves. We went into the city. We did some film shoots, a little film shoot, some radio shoot, and then some pictures. And for us, it was our 30 seconds of fame. And we had a lot of fun needling one another, giving it to each other about the way we looked or the way we acted. But in the end, we just wanted to, again, promote such a great service, whether it's career or volunteer.
Yeah, no, I was touched by it, and obviously when I watched it, not to really plug Verizon, but just, the pride I could see when you were talking about, being ready and serving as a firefighter, I thought was a great thing. In terms of just like how that might change your life a little bit, I mean, are people, I'm probably busting your chops, but I mean, yeah. what goes on? I mean,
yeah, I'm taking a lot of abuse for this, and of course, I'm also very cautious too, because again, it's very dangerous to single out an individual person for any achievement as it relates to the fire service. It's extremely dangerous because it sets the wrong message, and it really is about team. But if I can help the team and as far as promotion of something, I think that's good, and something that quite frankly I think we're missing today. We've seen the ranks. You were asking what's changed. It used to be a full house. You'd have 50, 100 members. Now, all of a sudden, you're down to 35 to 50 members. You're relying a lot more on mutual aid. Your neighboring towns, your adjacent towns. This morning I was mentioning there's a pretty big fire going on right now in Netcong, and so all the neighboring towns are helping out as well. A little bit of a celebrity there, but I'm paying a price for any sort of acknowledgement.
Yeah, and just I know you share with me. Unfortunately, there appears to be a significant fire event in Netcong. I pray that everybody gets out, and the first responders, and everybody's going to be okay, because it looked like a pretty significant fire event. In fact, I passed some of Morris County's finest apparently responding to the call, so I pray that everything goes good with that situation. Captain, I realize you got involved in the tunnel to the towers, a 5K. How'd you get involved in that?
Yeah, well, I can't say enough about that organization first. It's like most fundraising organizations, it has a great purpose. I believe it's 95 cents on every dollar goes back to the foundation. But the foundation and why I got involved with that. So, as I mentioned, I was from New York. I had the pride as well in the fire service. We lost one of our members in 9/11 who was actually doing work, first responder. His father, my parents, me, we were all very close, and that touched me. And as you mentioned before, and I appreciate you mentioning this to us, to the audience, is that the people adjacent to us, our spouses, our loved ones, the kids. They pay a significant price for us doing this as well, because we're constantly running out, but they usually don't get the credit. And one of the things the foundation focuses on, and it started small, was really trying to help first responder families after a fatal incident like this. And now it's extended to also our loved ones overseas, our armed forces as well. And so I thought it was a great purpose. And the run itself, which had been introduced to me through some of my friends in the FDMY, is a way to get some sponsorship, to bring some money back, and at the same time bring some of our other members out here in New Jersey into the fold. As it turns out, there's members from Scotland and Los Angeles and everyone else running as well. And to bring, to bring them into the fold, to run as a team, to raise money for the foundation, so that the foundation could keep giving back. And they've just done wonderful things. So, and while we're trying to get our juniors, our 15 to 18-year-olds to join us. Now, of course, that puts some pressure on me because that means I got to continue to train and make sure I can run that 5K and run faster than them, which, I know how to, I won't say cheat, but I know how to get around it a little bit.
Right.
But we got to set the tone.
Absolutely. No. And I want to follow up a little bit more, Captain, than with Captain Lynch. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back in 30 seconds.
The Todd Leonard Show is sponsored by the Leonard Foundation, whose mission is to support the children and families who are battling pediatric cancer and those in need of food and assistance, women's shelters, and other important social services in the community. They also proudly support those fighting pancreatic cancer. They feel it's vitally important to help those in need in our amazing community when they need us the most. Please join them in extending a helping hand and go to leonardcharity.org and donate now. Together, we can touch many lives.
Welcome back again. I have the great privilege of continuing our discussion with Captain Gary Lynch of the Mendham Boro Fire Department. Captain, you were talking about the 9/11, tunnel to towers, run the 5K, and you look like you're still in, really, really good shape, and that's obviously important since you're doing the run, and you're obviously also helping the community and fighting fires, so you want to be in obviously good shape. God forbid you got to be called into immediate service. That 9/11 day, one of my really good friends on Dr. Goldstein, a local Randolph dentist, and he was talking about helping out after identifying the victims. What a horrific day in our history. And I also realized, meeting with you today, there's about 343 firefighters that were lost that day, and talk about heroic folks. People, most people run from a fire. These are a disaster. The firefighters ran to it. They went in to help and save as many lives, and there were so many unbelievable stories. Firefighter after firefighter saved so many lives, and the folks that were able to get out really can't thank those folks enough for their commitment, and they lost their lives. So the meaning behind that when you do it, what's the feelings? I mean, how is that day? I mean, how important is that to you?
That day is extremely important to me. It's a very empty feeling, and I can't imagine what the people on the scene were feeling. Everyone, including not just the first responders and the Port Authority police and the police departments and the medical workers, but the people that were in the situation as well. So in honor of that, just one of the things we do on 9/11 at Mendham Boro is we have a little tribute in the morning, and then we take the ladder and we put it over Route 24 with our flag, with our American flag over there, because I think it's, I'm certainly proud to be an American. And we have our junior firefighters come out as well to understand the meaning of it. Most of them weren't even born when it happened. So it's a very important day in all of our lives. It's a very solemn day, but it's also a day where we have to continue to carry on and be proud and be stronger and really learn from it. And I think that's part of the honor of the service. So we do that.
Well, it's a great honorable, obviously what you guys do is beyond important for all of us. I mean, you save lives and you're there any moment. All the first responders. I drive every day on the way to the radio station today on, Sussex, and then Hanover Avenue. I drive down and I salute, believe it or not, every time I pass the 9/11 tribute, right by the Morris County Police Academy. It means the world to me. I mean, we live in the greatest nation, and we're stronger than, obviously a lot of people realize. I mean, the resiliency of our country is really a beautiful thing. Despite the acrimony, I can still recall after that horrible day how the country pulled together. I kind of wish it was like that now. The partisanship, the bickering, and everything else. I mean, I think it's a sad commentary, but I mean, we'll get through it. But I just remember, just how can I thank a first responder, and that's kind of what it's all about. I want to talk to you now Captain, which I think is really important, is fire prevention and safety. This time of year, there's just too many fires. Anytime there's a fire, there's too many of them. But, for whatever reason, it seems like it gets colder. People do some things that perhaps they didn't think out. They're not doing what they can do to make it safe. So I want to, talk to you a little bit about not a little bit. I like to talk as much as we can right now for the rest of the show, a good portion of it, about what you would recommend in terms of fire prevention and safety. I read that a home fire occurs every 86 seconds. 86 seconds. That's way too many. So can you give us some general tips that you would kind of recommend for all of us to try to follow? I'm blessed with a young family, and I want to do my best, I'm sure the listeners as well, to protect their families. So can you go over a little bit what you would recommend, Captain?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for bringing this up, because this is really important. So the first part of this we talked about already, but detectors, making sure at a minimum you do have smoke, heat detectors, fire detectors, as well as carbon monoxide gas detectors. One thing you should probably know is the new detectors have the built-in batteries with the 10-year life, so you don't have to worry about the battery, chirping, 2 or 3 years in, and you got to change the battery. So again, we've tried to make these things as foolproof as possible. With regard to families, if you've got a small family, going through some drills in the house is extremely important, and you can make this fun. What I would suggest is first you talk to them about finding their way out, feeling the door. If the door is hot, keeping the door closed in the bedroom. We have some really good pictures. If anyone wants to see them, again, come on down. We'll show you the difference in a working house fire between a door that was closed and a door that wasn't closed. It can mean, quite a bit of time that you have to save yourself as a result of that. So training with the kids, and then getting a little bit more advanced, putting on a blindfold or a sock and have them crawl through the hallways into the front door. One of the biggest mistakes that children make in a fire situation when they panic, especially young children, is they will run to their parents' room. No matter what the situation is, no matter how bad the fire is, they have to make their way to the parents' room, and the parents could already be out of the house. It's something you really should talk to them about. They have to get out. They have to get out to that tree or that meeting place or the car outside. So work with them on that. Just recently, not too long ago, we had a situation with the kitchen fire, and we went in, and the lady's dog was inside, and she was, "Where's my dog? Oh my gosh, my dog!" And she had lived with this dog a long time. So I thought to myself, dog, children, same thing. Went up the stairs, made the right turn, got in under the smoke. Felt around, and there, sure enough, was the dog. So we brought the dog out, and say the dog. But the point is that the dogs, the animals, they'll do the same things. Fortunately, most of the time, the dogs will get out. Unless they see you go back in, then they will go back in. We will rescue your animals. A lot of people ask about rescuing animals. We'll do that. So anything, just go out front, meet with with the police or whoever, let them know the story, let them know where the fire started, give them as much information as you can out front. It helps us know whether or not it's an isolated bedroom fire, it's a basement fire, a boiler, or whatever it might be. Other things, candles. I know a lot of people use candles. They smell nice, they look nice. If you're going to use a candle, again, use it securely, but keep everything at least 12 inches, anything combustible 12 inches away from the candle. Keep it isolated, and please put it in a place where you're going to remember to turn it out at night, or put it out at night. People leave them burning all night long. If they're in the glass jars, they're a little bit safer, but I just don't like open flames, so that's a challenge. Power strips. That's probably, in fact, we just had one in Mendham Township recently. Power strips are a problem when you put anything that is generating heat into the power strip. So, you have portable heaters, you have, even I'm trying to think of some of the other things that we've had burn up. But the point is, the power strips themselves, don't overload them. They always tell you don't overload them. But if you're using anything that generates heat, you want to be extremely careful using a power strip. Try not to use a power strip. Cooking. Everybody loves to cook on the holidays. Again, here's what I'd recommend with regard to cooking. If you're cooking, especially if you have younger adults cooking, keep tops of the pan nearby on the counter, so that if you are cooking something that has grease and ignites, you can quickly put the top on the pan, put it out so it doesn't get out of control. Never use water on a grease fire. You can use some baking soda. And if you know how to use a fire extinguisher, that's something we can also train you on how to use. But the stove fires we get a lot of as well. CO, carbon monoxide. This we average about a call a day, and we're not as busy as some of the other towns as well, like Parsippany and even Randolph and towns like that. But we get a lot of carbon monoxide calls, and a lot of them are false alarms. But we have had carbon monoxide with some very, very serious levels of carbon monoxide. So this can be from your heating unit downstairs. It could be somebody was doing some work and they knocked an exhaust flume off. Don't take them for granted. Get out of the house and call, because you're not going to know right away whether or not you have a leak. You're going to start feeling ill very quickly, and it might be too late by the time you get out the door if you decide to investigate yourself. So, and of course, if you have trees that you cut down, water them, and I would suggest watering every single day. Feel the needles. If the needles fall off, then it's probably time to get that tree out the door, because there's a lot of great videos on YouTube and elsewhere to show you how quick the trees go up when they're dry. Few things.
Right. Well, no, obviously you touched on some of the key ones. I wanted to go back to the smoke detector, because obviously it's important to have in place at certain locations. I understand they have to be on each floor, inside each bedroom, and outside the sleeping areas. But you touched on something probably all the listeners have gone through, which is the chirping, a smoke detector, and it's annoying. And I've been guilty in the past. You take it out. You're thinking, oh, my God, it's a pain in the butt. This chirping is making me bananas. First, you got to figure out where the chirping's coming from. And then when you figure it out, you take it out. What's your advice, Captain, in terms of making sure you have a working battery in every smoke detector?
Well, my advice would be this, and I realize that we're in some difficult times, but the reality is you got to ask, are you worth $40? Is your family worth $40? I would just take the thing down and put a new detector in. And as you said, you name the right places where they should go, outside the bedrooms. I like to put a detector. One of the things that we have is usually we'll have issues with heating units. So I would put one in the basement, of course, and attic fans. In the summertime, attic fans we have problems with. I put one up in the attic, and now with the new 10-year detectors for $40, you go and get a good one. You put it up there. Try to keep it away from, the fan itself, because the dust will draw into it, and then it will go off that way. But I just think you should replace them. I wouldn't mess around and try to save that old $15 detector, because a lot of them, you just don't know if they're going to work the same way.
And in terms of the listeners, it would seem that you would urge all of them to make sure all your smoke detectors are working. Am I right, Captain?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you got to do that. Daylight savings. Personally, I do it once a month. Just take your broom handle, go and put it on the test button. Do it with your kids. Maybe that's the time when you do your training with your kids and teaching them how to crawl out at night through different situations. Again, they're not going to be able to see. So they have to learn how to, one of the important things is feel the doors, as you mentioned before, feel the door handle. Be careful with the door handle because it may be hot. And when they crawl is to keep one hand on the wall, let's say the right wall, and continue to follow that wall. Don't switch hands. That's what they teach us in the fire service. And get out as quick as you can. If there's a lot of smoke, you can get down nice and low, and you're still going to have some time to get out.
Right. I read a lot about, even when I was a youngster, which is quite a while ago, hate to say that, but it's true, join the club. But in terms of if you are in a fire situation, to stay extremely low. Am I right, Captain?
Yeah, that's a very good point. You have a lot of time if you stay almost on the floor, not only from the smoke, but the heat. And you'll see there could be 200-300 degree difference between the ceiling heat and what you'd get on the floor for fresh air.
Right. And I was doing some more research just to help us all, because, you never know. A fire could take place like an accident. You don't no idea when it could happen, but when it does, you got to try to keep your cool and your wits about yourself in a crisis, which I know is always very challenging. What happens, God forbid, you're stuck, you just can't get out of your room, and it's a very, very scary situation. God forbid that is happening. What's your advice in terms of the vents, the door, when you should call 911, what you should do? What would be your advice for those listeners in that very, very difficult situation?
Well, that's a good question, and regardless of whether it's fire or an emergency call, if a relative goes down, call 911 first. Before anything else, call 911 if you can call 911. If you're in your room and you wake up and it's a terrible situation, the fire's in the hallway, close that door. If you can throw a towel or something kind of at the base of the door to keep the smoke out, that's great. If there's a window in the room, try to get to the window. Try to get something out the window, a towel or something like that. Do not open the windows all the way. One of the things we've really gotten better with in the fire service over the last 5 to 10 years is airflow. And a lot of what we do now is try to confine the flow of the heats and the gases by closing doors and by ventilating different ways. So the same is true for the individual who's locked in the room. Get that towel out the window, crack that window, let somebody know you're out there. Just stay low and stay in the corners. Your corners are best because of the way that the heat and smoke will rise. It will hit the ceiling. It will start to bank down. It will come down and it will, take you that way. Just stay low to the floor and, firefighters will get you. Make sure when you call 911, you let them know where you are too. Second floor in the back, rear corner or whatever. And these are terms we use as well, but it's things you should become familiar with and with your children as well. If you are on a second floor, I'd recommend escape ladders too. They have the chain escape ladders. You throw them under the bed. You take them out once a year. You show the kids how to use them. You show the husband or wife how to use them. A lot of people are afraid of heights. This is something you're going to have to overcome as well. But those ladders, they're fairly inexpensive, and you can keep them under the bed out of the way. Yeah, I was also reading, obviously, you have to teach the kids never hide under a bed or in a closet. Am I right, Captain? Yeah, and I mentioned that fatal fire before. It's so true. Closets, parents' rooms, under the beds, under the covers, anything that's going to conceal them, dresser drawers if they're really small. You got to teach them that not seeing it doesn't mean it can't see you, and your point is spot on. Right. Yeah. Just once again, this is dead serious for the listeners. I know it's around the holiday time, but you all have to be ready any moment. It's 365 days a year. It's all year round, these issues. I also read about the 3 Ps, prevent, plan, and practice. In terms of that, Captain, I know we talked on a little bit more, but any other advice for the listeners about the 3 Ps? I'd add a fourth one, which is practical, and so anytime you hear of a situation, you see a situation on TV, whether it's a fake situation or real situation, I think it's a great time to sit around the table, have a discussion about it. What should we be doing? What would we do in that situation? Would we do anything differently? Is that really real? Would that happen? Would we get that much smoke? Would they get that much heat? Would things melt off the wall? Could I run through a flame like that? Those are questions you need to ask. And again, you need to ask each other, and you can ask the firefighters. There's a lot of us around, so. Right. And let's say, God forbid, someone unfortunately is on fire. What is the 3 things that they should try their best to do as quick as possible? Yeah, well, if you're on fire, it's a stop, drop, and roll. So you basically want to stop, you want to drop, and you want to roll. And the reason why is you're trying to suffocate the fire. One of the things that you want to probably have a discussion about, and I just had it with the 2 11-year-old girls we were talking to, I test them on it all the time, or what is the fire triangle? Because the reality is if you understand the fire triangle, then you can put the fire out. So it's fuel, oxygen, and heat. You take away any one of those elements. Water cools the fire. Oxygen, when you put the top on the lid on the pan, takes away the oxygen. Fuel, you remove the fuel, such as the wood or whatever, it goes away. So if you could kind of think about that as you're thinking about fires in your house, I think that's as effective as some of the other techniques as well, understanding the science behind it.
Yeah, you talked a little bit about kitchen fires or people cooking and they basically they leave the food unattended. I was reading that's probably the leading cause of fires in people's homes. And I know, look, everyone could be guilty of that. You put something on, you're going to take a quick shower, you're going to, go to another room. What's your advice when you're cooking and you got a flame and you got something on the stove, Captain?
Well, it's again the same thing. I think you're right. Unattended cooking is very, very common in Morris County. You turn on the scanner, you could hear probably one a day. So it's one of those things that don't leave your cooking. We're not talking about crock pots as an example, but don't leave your stoves on. Whatever is in there is going to burn, including the pan itself, the pot itself, after a certain amount of heat. So don't leave it unattended. And the other thing too that we run into is hair. If you have long hair, please be careful around any cooking. You tend to lean over, take a look. Same thing with candles, and the next thing you know, your hair is burning. So be careful there. And keep the lids nearby. The lids make a big deal. I know, you're cooking bacon, all of a sudden this is going good. Somebody distracts you, turn around, and now all the grease is on fire. Man, in 2 seconds, you could just take that pot lid and throw it right over the top. If you don't, now the grease starts spreading, you panic, you try to pick it up, you try to put it in the sink, you wind up starting a fire in the kitchen. Leave it alone. If it's really gotten out of hand like that, dial 911, get out of the house. It's a hard decision to make, but it's the right decision to make.
Right. I'm sure, sadly, people wait too long to call 911, and they think they're their own firefighters, and they realize maybe too late. So I'm assuming when in doubt, just call 911. Let the professionals come quickly. Make sure you and your family and your belongings and your home, but most importantly, you are safe in your family. I wanted to talk a little bit, Captain, about portable generators, because, after some of these big storms, they become really in vogue, and then sadly you hear these stories of people, unfortunately, have carbon monoxide poisoning and people die. What's your tips for the use of portable generators?
Yeah, another great point. And it is a very common practice. Again, the portable generator has to be vented. It has to be away from the home. I don't remember the exact footage, but I would say keep it at least 15 to 20 feet away from your home. I think it's actually more than that, so we'll have to check up on that one. The portable generators have to be used outside. Never use them in a garage. Even if the garage is open, you're still going to get carbon monoxide in the house. And don't overload the generators as well. We've had portable generators go on fire. So I'd say probably more like 50 to 100 feet from the house, just to have a safe ventilation.
Right. And obviously for those folks celebrating Hanukkah tonight and for the next 8 days, the idea of just common sense things with matches with the kids. What's your advice in terms of where matches and candles and lighters should be stored, especially when you have children around?
Yeah, keep the candles, keep the lighters, especially those little portable lighters, and the matches away. Keep them above. Don't let the kids see where you put them. And to be honest, if you can use them when the kids aren't around, I would suggest that. I know a lot of people like to show the kids how to use the matches, but then all of us have that kind of little element in us. We like to see the fire and watch the fire as well. So again, Todd, great point. Keep them away from the kids. Candles, you got to keep them again away from where the children are, where they can reach them or knock them over. But probably more importantly, keep the combustible materials, curtains as an example, any sort of paper goods away from him. One other thing too is you mentioned on the generators. One of the things we're seeing more and more of, same thing with cars, we continually get retrained, batteries. They've got these home batteries now, the Yeti batteries. They can keep your house going for 3 or 4 days. These things are great, but I'd also be very careful on the use of them. You keep them plugged in, you keep them charged forever. These things tend to fail, overheat, and battery fires are not fun to fight. You'll be there for 5, 6, 7 hours trying to cool that battery, the lithium batteries. So same thing when you dispose of batteries in your house. Again, you shouldn't throw them in the garbage can. You should dispose of them separately. And the reason why is because you can, especially with the 9-volt batteries, start a fire with them in the garbage. So be careful way you dispose your batteries.
Very good tip. A lot of people take that for granted. I just want to touch a little bit about electrical cords, powered surge protectors. My office was involved in a very sad case in Dover where somebody daisy-chained. They took a number of cords and put them together, and unfortunately caused a very, very horrible fire. What's your advice in terms of people connecting electrical cords, putting powered surge protectors together? What's your advice?
Yeah, so if it's generating heat, try to avoid using a power surge detector, and if you're going to use any sort of extension cord, because you have to, make sure it's a heavy-duty cord. There are different grades. You'll see them when you go to Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever, but use the heavier grade and don't put anything else on it. Monitor it and unplug it when you're not using it if you need heat in the house. As far as daisy chaining, again, it's easy for me to say, but we can also show you a lot of pictures of fires where we've had these issues, especially with the power strips themselves. Some of them are very cheaply made. Some of them will be overloaded with computers. Shut them down. Pull them out at night. It's a pain in the neck, but again, you kind of keep asking yourself, what's my life worth? And it's one of those, if you get into the discipline of it, you'll do it. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And if you have old extension cords, a lot of us bring our Christmas trees out or the Hanukkah menorah, or whatever, depending again if you're losing the electricity. These are the kinds of things that over a bunch of years, get rid of them. The wire becomes fragile, becomes very fragile and from bending and stuff like that and repacking. So to just replace it is to be safe.
Absolutely. And in terms of obviously another common sense issue is smoking in bed. A lot of people, for whatever reason, think it's okay to light up a cigarette or a cigar and kick back, and before you know it, they're sleeping. Any tips, any ideas on how we can avoid these kind of fires starting?
Well, this used to be our number one fire. You were talking about how things have changed. And between less people smoking and detectors, it's kind of cut back, but I do take it for granted. And so again, that's a no-no. And smoking in the bedroom, I'm not here to tell you that you shouldn't smoke in the bedroom, but there's so much combustibles in the bedrooms. Again, fires burn much faster. They burn much quicker. And now with these new mattresses, especially the Tempur-Pedics and things like that, you're going to get is a smoldering, and then you'll get a poisonous gas. So unlike the old days where the cloth would burn and you'd get smoked out and you'd have to get out so you wouldn't get burned, in this case, you might not get a chance to get out because you got synthetics, you got petrochemicals that are in the materials themselves. So again, I had to avoid any sort of smoking in the bedroom.
All right. And Captain, it's wonderful. I mean, obviously, we're just trying to bring to the public's attention some of these common causes.
These are great questions. Yeah.
And, I hope, God forbid somebody's in the situation. Hopefully we can save a life or help a family out from avoiding a tragedy, because that's really what it's all about, is to prevent some of these horrible situations from occurring. Captain, in parting, do you have any advice for the listeners who are thinking about getting involved and giving back? Anything that you can feel looking back over your 4 decades, over 40 years of doing volunteerism? Anything you can advise our listeners?
Yeah, I think if you're thinking, stop thinking, come on down, and just give it a try. Give it a try. Come down to the firehouse, meet some of the people. You'll never get a better feeling in your life than giving back. It creates such a passion, honor, and probably most importantly, a purpose for all of us. So I'd recommend stop thinking about it. Come on down, start asking some questions. We'd be more than happy to talk to you.
Beautiful. And Captain, I can't thank you enough for coming. I know how busy you are today between your professional responsibilities and your tremendous volunteerism. I'm assuming you'll be down at the fire station later today. I also want to just tell the listeners, each week we bring people on. Captain Lynch is a wonderful example. If you're thinking about getting involved, just do it. Lend a hand up, help others in need. I think that's really what it's all about. We're caught up in the holiday season, and there's folks that are less fortunate. And you got to look around. You got to be aware who else needs a hand up. You got to pay it forward. When Chris D'Amico, Laura D'Amico, beautiful people, talked about the kindness for Christopher movement and the ripple effect, how you do one night's thing, you can impact people. You have no idea how you can lift someone's spirit. This holiday season, put your hand out. Help out. People, if you see them, they look a little down and out. Even a kind word makes a huge difference. We also want to once again let everyone know I started this foundation, the Leonard Foundation. It helps kids and families battling pediatric cancer. I'm trying to help social services. I lost my dad to a dreaded disease, pancreatic cancer. We raise money. If you're interested in helping, go to leonardcharity.org. I also want to once again tell all of you, have a wonderful, beautiful holiday season. God bless you. I look forward to speaking with you next Sunday. Take care.